Hello, my name is Mike Montgomery. I'm with i2i Systems, and I'll be providing our demonstration regarding i2iTracks, our population health management solution. The demo is going to focus on the main features of the product that apply to the needs of the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services. The purpose of the software is functionally twofold. It's designed to allow you to report information about your entire population or your panel of patients on a global level. And it's also designed to provide you with proactive information about groups and individual patients within those groups, and gives you the ability to facilitate a much more comprehensive program of patient outreach and optimal patient care delivery. The information gets into Tracks very simply through a bidirectional interface with the Los Angeles County's Enterprise Data Repository. The EDR is fed by 6 feeds coming from 6 separate affinity systems located at the 6 major Los Angeles County hospital locations, and that information is fed directly into a separate database of i2iTracks. It is a bidirectional interface. Most of the data is coming directly from the EDR into i2iTracks. We are doing some calculations, and those in a small scale way are coming back into the enterprise data repository. Let's look for a minute about how we can actually compare performance of facilities and providers across various aspects of all the data that we're actually collecting. This is an actual Tracks Today screen. This would be the Tracks Today log-on screen. So when you log on, you're going to see a screen that looks very similar to this. It's easily customizable, and these are actually live action items on the screen. And the items that do appear here will be individually tailored for the roles and responsibilities of those within the county that are actually using the product. But to look at how we can compare between facilities and providers, look at some reports. For example, we're going to run our health registry report. We have several of those, so we're going to do our diabetic health report. Whenever you run a report, you're going to see this screen, and this screen is really asking you, how do you want me, software, to actually provide this data in this database to you in terms of parameters. In its most simple form, we'll use a date range. I'll just do this for the entire year 2011. Enter the date range and click OK. And the software will actually go through the entire database and create this report for me based on the date range that I selected. So whenever you run a report, you're going to see a variety of measures displayed vertically along the y-axis. And for each of these measures, 2 numbers off to the right. The first number is going to be a value. This value represents the number of patients, the underlying patients, that meet the particular measure on that line. And the percentage figure that follows is the percentage that these patients comprise of the overall patients in the actual sample. So we can see in this case, for this diabetic health report, we have quite an extensive array of parameters that we're measuring. And this is again done on a global system-wide basis for all the patients in the actual database, in the actual registry. So let's run that report one more time and really do some comparisons. Again, I'll run the same report. It's our diabetic health report. And this time I'm going to go ahead and show this for specific locations. So if I check only these locations and then click Add, I can see these locations. These are examples of my demo database, but you would actually see the separate locations for the Los Angeles County. So I can pick a couple of these just by checking the boxes and clicking OK. And we'll show these in separate columns side by side. So what this report will show, you'll see exactly the same indicators along the vertical or the y-axis. But what we'll see on the right side of the report is comparative figures between the various locations involved. And we have no actual demo patients in this, but the idea is that you can compare these exact same measures between locations quickly and easily without having to write additional reports, simply using that selections criteria window that appears whenever you want to run one of these reports. We'll run that same report a third and different way. And in this case, we're going to look at this comparatively in terms of providers. So again, same period of time, 2011, and I'll say let's just take a look at, for example, these three providers. I want to take a look at their parameters side by side, separate columns. And again, the same indicators along the y-axis, but now you can see comparatively how these providers are doing along those exact same measures. I think an interesting thing about all of our reports are, if I just scroll down here and take a look at some of the areas, if we look at HbA1c, for example, I can see that for this report, patients that have had a test with an HbA1c greater than 9, for Dr. Green, there are 4 patients. For Dr. Wright, there are 6 patients. For Dr. Bermudez, there are 8 patients. This looks like a comparatively high number. If I want to drill down and see what 8 patients this number represents, I simply double-click the number, and we drill down immediately to the patients underlying that particular value. Very handy to be able to determine exactly which patients comprise that number. Dr. Bermudez may in fact say, I don't believe I have 8 patients that have a high HbA1c greater than 9. Well, there's the proof in the pudding. Those are the actual patients that comprise that number. And it's usually not because Dr. Bermudez isn't providing quality care to his patients. It's because perhaps these patients have fallen through the cracks. They're not coming in for their regular health care, and we're not really able, as a result of that, to manage their HbA1c levels accordingly. Let's look at comparison at this particular point in time about indicators and performance measures. What indicators are we going to use to actually make these kinds of comparisons? We do that typically using reports. And reports, like searches, are a very major, integral part of this application. And they were both designed to allow the user themselves to create the reports and to create the searches quickly and easily at the user level without having to rely on i2i systems to do any kind of work in the background and make the process any less quick than it actually is. So let's take a look at how we can change these reports. We'll look at our setup screen, printing and reporting. And in this case, we'll take a look at our active diabetes statistics report. If I select that report and click Edit, what you see on the screen is a very simple array of tabs within a single window. And these tabs allow us to actually create the report and to actually modify the report. As an example, if I click on the Defined Fields tab, this gives me an idea in terms of this report, all of the data elements that are going to be available to be displayed in the report. If I want to add a data element, it's simply a matter of picking the category in which the data element occurs. In this case, let's take a look at a lab, for example. Let's say we wanted to add a CD4 lab, or let's go back and actually take a look at a PHQ. That's in the vitals. So if we want to add a PHQ score to this report, I just simply click on PHQ, click and drag and drop it into the Defined Fields area, and then I just follow the instructions that the wizard is asking me. In this case, I'm going to see if the PHQ test occurred, and I want to report on whether it occurred, what's the last value, minimum, maximum values, or the date of the last occurrence. In this case, I'm just going to report on whether this PHQ-9 test had occurred. The wizard asks me, okay, occurred when? During the reporting period, prior to, during or prior to, during the X number of days, weeks, months, or years prior to the beginning of the reporting period, days, weeks, months, or years prior to the end of the reporting period, prior to the end of the reporting period, or between a date range. So a lot of flexibility in determining when you want to report on the occurrence of this particular test. I'll just say during the reporting period and click OK. And I've now added that PHQ occurred measure to my report. The Design tab is the tab where we go ahead and look at the actual design of the report. These are the parameters that you would see on the report. Again, these are easily changed with a simple English language point, click, and drag approach using checkboxes and drop-down menus. So if I want to change this HbA1c greater than 9 parameter, I just double click it, and again, I'm just asked, you want to change it to whatever value. In this case, I'll say HbA1c greater than 11, and I'll simply edit that filter to make sure that the value is now greater than 11. So in a couple of clicks, I've actually changed the report without having to use any kind of computer ease, no Cognos, no Crystal reports, a very quick and easy way for you to manage these reports, create and manage these reports actually on the fly at the user level. You can also import and export reports so they can quickly and easily be shared among users. That avoids having to recreate reports that have already been created. And we provide quite a wide variety of these reports on our website, and they can be downloaded at no charge and made a part of your own report criteria. Let's take a little bit of time and talk about tracking types. Tracking types to i2iTracks are groups of patients with like conditions. They could be groups of patients with like chronic conditions, groups of patients that are similar in terms of their health maintenance needs, and the ability to use tracking types really streamlines the use of this particular product. We can take a look at our patient information screen. I'm going to pull up just an example of that screen using Anna Richardson, my favorite demo patient. And you can see a wide variety of information on this screen. At the bottom left, we're showing the tracking types to which this patient has been assigned. She's being tracked for asthma, diabetes, hypertension, and then 2 health maintenance tracking types. And when you create a tracking type, you define the parameters of when existing patients or new patients are assigned to a tracking type. In the example of diabetes, whenever any of our patients are going to be recorded with the 250.XX diabetes diagnosis, they will be added to the tracking type. When the tracking type is created, any patient with one of those diagnoses is added to the tracking type, and as any patients that weren't initially part of the tracking type develop a 250.XX diagnosis, or new patients come on board with that diagnosis, they're added automatically to the tracking type. So you don't need to worry about manually adding patients to any of these tracking types. So we're going to look and see one of the main features of these tracking types and how we can actually use them to very effectively search for patients. If I click on my Search for Patients icon, what I'm going to see is a list of searches that I've created for my entire system. As you begin to realize the power of these searches, you're going to create more and more of them, and the list can become quite extensive, so we also allow you to create search groups and assign like searches to groups so that they're much more easily managed. But let's just look at our diabetic 6-month recall search. If I double click on that search, what I'm going to see is what you will see whenever you run a search within i2iTracks. Every search in i2iTracks is going to generate a list of patients that meets the criteria for that particular search. In this case, we're displaying the criteria at the bottom of the screen. We're looking at all of our active patients that are being tracked for diabetes and that have not had a visit in the last 6 months and have not had an appointment in the next 2 months. Let's look at how that search is created. If I click on the Edit button, I'm going to see a similar window to that we saw for the reports. We're going to see 2 less tabs. It's a little bit more simplistic. The Filters tab is the tab that shows you the actual criteria that's being used to generate that list of patients. We're using our diabetes tracking type in this case to make sure that all of the patients in the results of this search are being tracked for diabetes. So we don't have to worry about specifying diagnoses. We just use that tracking type as a search criteria, which gives us a quick and easy way to generate these searches and really drill down to any of the patients that are being tracked for a variety of chronic conditions or for any of the health maintenance items. You can create an unlimited number of tracking types in i2iTracks. It's very quick and it's very easy. But what I want to do is actually show you how we can use the patient information screen as well. Let's go back to Anna Richardson's patient information screen. So what we're going to do now is take a look at what you can actually do from a proactive position about the individual patient. We're going to look at alerts. We can look at a recent ER visits and hospitalization search, take a look at a patient care, day of care visit summary, go over a little bit more about searches, and then talk about a very important way to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks, and that would be both follow-ups and tasks. So if we look at Anna's patient information screen, one of the things that shows up in red quite glaringly are the alerts that are due for this patient. Whenever a scheduled item comes due or whenever a value is outside of range, it will show up for each individual patient as an alert. In this case, a variety of alerts are present for Anna. One of the alerts is a flu shot. She's due for a flu shot. If Anna comes in for a visit and I see this as a provider and I ask her, gee, you're due for a flu shot, she says, no, actually I just had one yesterday. I went to CVS and got one free. You can easily keep track of that within this application. I'll click the History tab and then Immunizations. And for the flu immunizations, I'm just going to click Set, and it's going to default to today's date. Well, she just told me she came into CVS and had a shot yesterday, so I'll just use the menu, pick yesterday's date. It defaults to Received, and I may want to make a note that she simply went to CVS for that particular flu shot. Click OK. I now show that this flu shot has been received, and the date was the 28th, which was yesterday. So the next time I come into this patient's record, what I will see is now her alerts have gone down by 1. She now has 7 alerts, and we can see that the flu shot has disappeared from her actual list of alerts. We can also enter other things directly into the application. An example of that would be blood pressure. If I click on my History tab, the visit note shows her history of visits along with all the vitals that had been taken then. If maybe she had her blood pressure done at CVS as well, they have those automatic machines, and I want to add a blood pressure reading, I'll just click the Add button. Maybe she had a very good 120/80. I can simply enter those parameters and click OK. And then we've just added another blood pressure reading for Anna very quickly and easily. So I'm going to go back to the searches field and take a look at our diabetic 6-month recall search again and see how quick and easy it is to actually edit that search. If I click on Edit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the parameters for the search. Maybe I want to go ahead and, let's say, just show all the females that are being tracked for diabetes and we haven't seen in 6 months with no appointment for the next 2 months. I'll just click Add. These are all of the filters, the groups of filters that you can add to these searches. It's very extensive. And if I want to add, for example, a gender filter, I just click on gender and click OK. And the wizard starts up and says, okay, you want to only include patients who meet or do not meet the following gender. I'll say I want to only include patients who meet the gender of female and click OK. Instantly, that particular filter is added to my search criteria, and the next time I actually run that, what I will see is that there are only going to be specific females for this particular search. But I want to change something else as well. If I want to add some fields to the actual data that's displayed for each patient, I can just click the Fields tab. And let's say that I want to add, this patient's home phone communications preference. 2 check marks, I click OK. They're added to the actual list of data fields that will be shown when the search is run. And I can move those up and down to make sure they're in the proper sequence as I'd like to see them. I can click OK. And then I run the search again, and it will look a bit differently. These are now all female patients, and we can also see that a home phone has been added as well as communications preference. So a quick and easy way to change the criteria associated with any search, and also the data that's displayed for each one of the patients that is shown as a result of the criteria embodied in the search. And these are all sortable fields. If I want to sort by HbA1c last value, I can do that quickly and easily by just clicking on the column headings. Another important point of using these searches is whenever you have a search that results in a list of patients, then you have a very powerful Actions button that appears on the right side of the screen. if I wanted to take an action, a collective action for each one of these patients on this search list, I can click Select All. Instantly a check mark appears by each one of these patients. And then I can click the Actions button and perform an action for every patient on this list. Some of the actions that we can take are, I can create recalls, I can print letters, I can print labels, I can print visit summaries or other summaries, I can send these patients an email, I can manage their tracking types, or I can inactivate them. I think one of the strongest capabilities of our Actions button is the ability to print visit summaries. So if I click on Print Visit Summaries, I'll see an example. These are the examples of the visit summaries that I've created in my system. Well, I don't want to print them for 43 patients, so what I will do is I'm going to close this search. We'll go back to Anna, and I'm going to print a patient visit summary for Anna to give you an idea in terms of what those patient visit summaries can look like. So the Actions button is also present on every patient information screen. Makes it quick and easy to take an action for an individual patient. So we'll print a visit summary for Anna Richardson, and I'm going to print our, for example, day of care visit summary. If I double-click that, the visit summary will appear. I'm going to print that to PDF so we can take a look at it here in the demo. These visit summaries are commonly printed by our clients for patients who perhaps are coming in for a visit the next day, and they can be handed to the provider so that the provider has the information on the patient visit summary in front of him or her when the patient appears for his or her visit. This is very powerful. This example, this day of care visit summary, is going to show all of the patient's demographics. It's going to show recent vitals for the patient. It's going to show all the patient's allergies, their problems, their medications. These alerts are the alerts that we saw on the patient information screen right in front of the provider. If there were any upcoming items for the patient, they would appear here to us. Upcoming items being things that are going to be coming due within the next 60 days. We have procedures and referrals. The ones that are shown in red are due. We show labs, an HbA1c due. She's had a high an LDL recently. And we can also run these in a tabular form with the red being alerts, the red being, in this case, high HbA1cs or high LDLs. We can provide graphs to actually show the patient and also help the provider manage this patient's health. The graphs can be set up with green target zones so we can actually see how these patients are doing in terms of trying to get these parameters, in this case, some labs and a vital, into the appropriate target range. These clinical pieces of information are invaluable in making sure that when a patient appears for a visit, perhaps complaining of a stomach ache, then the complete patient's health history is available in one location for the provider, and the provider with this information is going to treat that patient very differently than if this information was not easily available for the provider. It's going to save time, and it's going to eliminate errors in taking care of your patient population. So I'm going to close the patient visit summary, and let's look at one other feature of the product. Let's print a letter. If I click on Print Letter, what's going to happen is I'm going to see the letters that are set up in this system. And again, we make it easy to create and maintain and actually use these letters on an ongoing basis. And you can create an unlimited number of these letters. Let's just look at the diabetic 6-month recall letter, for example. I'm not going to print it here, but what I will do is go to our Setup drop-down, select Correspondence, where you can say this is where you would set up any emails, any labels, or any letters. So if I click on Letters, what I'll see is all the letters in this particular system. And let's just look at the diabetic 6-month recall letter. If I select that letter, what I'm going to see is our word processor appear. This is our built-in word processor, and it allows you to quickly create and modify these letters at the user level on the fly. You could easily insert a logo at the top of the letter if that was what was desired. Each one of these fields with brackets is a macro field. And what that means is if I print this letter for a patient or a group of patients, the system is going to automatically insert the appropriate data into these macro fields. So this date will automatically appear. We'll insert the patient's name, address, first name, and the following text is simply a word processor-based application where if I wanted to change the wording on this text, I can simply use my keyboard and do so. You can also easily create bilingual letters, which would include the Spanish translation of this right beneath here, so that only one letter has to go out to those both English and Spanish-speaking patients. For a moment, I'm going to close Anna's patient information screen and take a look at one of the searches that was set up for the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services. It's our ER visit or hospitalization in the last 30 days search. So one click on that and I can see that for this particular search, I have 107 people that have had an ER visit or a hospitalization in the last 30 days. And again, this is searchable and sortable by any of the field column headings: name, gender, date of birth, age, medical record number, location, or provider. Quick and easy way to see those that have had simply an ER visit, a recent ER visit, or a hospitalization. So for the last section of the demonstration, we're going to talk a little bit about patient-centered medical home model of team-based care. What we've done for the Los Angeles County is we've added a field for each one of the patients in the database. And that's going to allow you to make sure that these patients are receiving the absolute maximal care by assigning care managers or care teams to each patient. And let's go back and take a look at Anna again. So for each patient, if we look at the History tab and go down to Other Profile Items, one of the things that is most important on this tab is we've assigned a care manager or a care team to this patient. So this patient is currently being cared for by the green team. And if I want to see a history of who's been responsible for this patient's care, I can select the care manager and care team line item. I can click on History, and we'll simply see that initially this patient was being cared for by Susan, and then she's migrated to the blue team, then to Jeff, back to the blue team, Christine, and then she's now on the green team. Again, if I wanted to change that, let's say that Jeff is now going to be in charge of Anna again, I just click Set. I see a list of the appropriate care managers or care teams. I just pick one of those. If I want to make that change effective today, I just use today's default visit date and click OK. And now her care manager or care team has been changed to Jeff. And this is also a very powerful field because if I go back to my searches and I run my diabetic 6-month recall search again, I can actually edit that and I can add care manager or care team as a filter. So if I wanted this search just to show, for example, the blue team's care manager list, I can simply click on Filters. I can click on Add. I select Other Profile Items, Care Manager, Care Team, and I can pick any of the care managers or care teams in my system. Okay, let's just say that I want to look at, let's go Red Team. I click OK, and now the Red Team filter has been added to this particular search. So if I simply click OK, and I run this again, there I don't have very many patients. I have one patient, Alma Clanton, is assigned to the Red Team. Well, I wouldn't know that if I didn't look at the criteria here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that search again, make another quick and easy change, and I'm going to add to our list of fields. I'm going to take off home phone, for example. Let's remove that from the list. I'm going to remove communications preference. I'm going to add from one of our categories from our Other Profile Items. I'm going to add Care Manager, Care Team, the last value and the last date to our list of fields that will be displayed for each patient. Click OK. Run the search again. same list of patients, and now we can see that this patient is assigned to the red team, and that assignment took place on this particular date. So again, 2 examples here. One, quick and easy to create and modify these searches, and how quick and easy it is to actually set up searches that apply to individual care managers or care teams to allow those care managers and care teams to quick and easily see what patients they're responsible for and make sure that those patients are going to be getting the care that they need. What we did when we created this application was we wanted to make sure that basically no important tasks, no important items were going to be falling through the cracks. So one of the important ways that we do that is we create what are called follow-ups. And what we saw happening in many care environments was people using Post-it notes. I've seen Post-it notes stuck on monitors. I've seen them stuck on keyboards, desktops. I've seen spiral ring notebooks with pen and pencil notes scrawled all over them and sections of the page torn out. All of those methods are horribly inefficient. They simply don't work. So what we've done is created a follow-up manager, which allows you to create and in an orderly managed work any of the follow-ups that you need to take place in your system. So if I start the follow-up manager, what I'm going to see are 2 tabs. The first tab is asking me what are the criteria for the follow-ups that I want to see when I click on the follow-ups tab. And I can drill down to these follow-ups by date, by to whom it's assigned, by the status of the follow-up, who it's attached to, if it's a specific location-oriented follow-up. I can pick these to really drill down to my follow-ups. So if I leave this set at any period, any follow-up for any period that is still not completed, and I click the follow-ups tab, that's what I'm going to see. In this case, I've got 68 follow-ups that have not been completed. And if I sort these by active date, by clicking the column heading, I can see a lot of these are very, very old. So if I was a manager, I would want to find out exactly why these follow-ups had not been done. I can click on the Assigned To column and see exactly who they're assigned to. If I was an actual staff member, I probably only want to see mine. So I would just simply say Assigned to User. I would just pick me, click OK, and then use the Follow-Ups tab to see which ones apply to me. In this case, I only have 1 follow-up. If I want to work that follow-up, I just double-click it, and I can see all the details that comprise the follow-up. This is a follow-up for verifying an appointment schedule. It's been active for a while. It's assigned to me. It's not completed, and the events that have taken place along the lines of working this follow-up are shown in the events window. I've only done one thing for this particular follow-up. If I want to add an event, I just click Add. Perhaps today that I called the patient, I'll just add that. And maybe I was only able to leave a voice message. So you can enter this information easily, and these events are tracked and will continually be tracked until this particular follow-up is completed. When it is completed, I simply check it as completed and click OK, and when I do, it'll fall off of my follow-up manager list. I'm not going to do that because I want to show you that if I'm a staff member, I don't have to use any of these particular menu items to find my follow-ups. All I have to do is use my Tracks Today screen, where I can have optionally one of the line items there be follow-ups that are assigned to me. So if I were to double-click that, these are all live links, there's the follow-up that was actually assigned to me. Again, this is a very effective way of making sure that follow-ups do not actually disappear, and all actions that need to take place do take place. We do that in one other place, and that are tasks. Tasks are a little different than follow-ups. If I double-click my patient tasks that are due and assigned to me live link, what I'll see is all the tasks. This defaults to all the users in the organization, but if I want to drill down to mine, I can do that quickly and easily. The ones that are in red are the ones that are due. A task is different from a follow-up in that tasks are items that need to be done on a repetitive basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly, daily. And again, these tasks can be done easily because all I do is click one, and if I click Perform Task, my Perform Task button, it will actually perform the task that's associated with the line item here at the top of the screen. So tasks and follow-ups, combination of ways to make sure that nothing falls between the cracks, no patients are left behind. That functionally concludes the demo of the product. I want to thank you for your attention. There's a lot more information that you can actually see and learn about on the i2i Systems website, and that website is the letter I, the number 2, the letter I, SYS.com. i2isys.com. It's been a pleasure providing your demonstration today, and thank you very much.